All right, everyone, I have a lot to say about this book. I am reviewing today for you guys The Reappearance of Rachel Price by Holly Jackson. It's Holly Jackson's latest release. I saw one review online, it said love it or hate it, and that's kind of how I'm feeling. And I will tell you more about that in my review. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a little book blurb for you guys, basically to just give you the general idea of the book, especially if you haven't read it. I'm going to tell you before we have spoilers so that if you haven't read the book, you can skip the spoiler part, or if you know you don't want to read the book, then you can listen to the spoilers and then just decide from there how you feel about this book. Anyway, so book blurb. This is basically about a girl named Belle, and she's lived her whole entire, it's Annabelle, but she's lived her whole entire life wondering what happened to her mother. Because her mother, Rachel Price, disappeared 16 years ago and left Belle, only about 2 years old at the time, in the back of the running vehicle. Now, she's been wondering her whole entire life, why did my mom leave me? Is she dead? All of that good stuff. And then 16 years later, this film crew wants to do a documentary on the disappearance of Rachel Price. So they start filming this documentary, and lo and behold, who reappears? But Rachel Price. So it basically follows the reappearance of Rachel Price, as the title says, and Belle's feelings towards that reappearance and the truth behind where her mother was these 16 years. Because it's not as simple as what her mother is necessarily saying, because the whole entire novel, Belle believes that she's lying. So she has to figure out what the truth is and why her mother is lying to her. So that's just a basic book blurb. And now I'm going to go into the review for you guys. But what in the ever-living goodness did I just read? Because I can't say that I liked this novel, because I really didn't. I don't feel like I actually liked this novel. It was meant to me, because it started out so slow. It was so unbearably slow. You basically just get all of this exposition. You learn that her mother disappeared. You're getting this documentary filmed. It was so tedious and so boring, and I just had to keep repeating to myself, like, I don't DNF books. I don't DNF books. I do not DNF books. And like, I just kept repeating that to myself because I wanted to stop. It was too much exposition. And it was funny because there was a point in the beginning of the novel where Belle is actually looking at a book on her nightstand saying, I just started this book and it's so slow because there's so much exposition, but I know it's about to get to the good part. And it really felt like Holly Jackson was saying, hang in there, we're about to get there. But I never felt like we got there. Not until the very, very last end, like the last portion of the novel, where you get everything. Bam, 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 bam. This is what happened. That is the only time where I felt like, wow, this is exciting. You know, I want to keep reading. I want to finish this book. Everything else was just, whoa, it was rough. It was very rough. So with that, okay, let's start off with the characters. Since we got into how slow it was, and that's a big part of why I didn't like it, is because most of the novel is just boring. But we'll go with the characters. I'll explain to you kind of the characters and how I felt about each one of them. So you get Ash, and Ash is an assistant to Ramsey, and Ramsey is the main camera guy for the documentary. Ash is a knockoff version of Ravi. 100%. He is like the dollar store version of Ravi. And I hate saying that. But it's like Holly Jackson took her two most well-known characters, which are obviously Pip and Ravi from A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. She took them and she's like, okay, let's mix them up a little bit. Let's add a little here, let's add a little there, and now here we go. New book. Ash was the dollar store version of Ravi. I didn't like him. He was supposed to be Belle's love interest, and I felt no connection between them whatsoever. I never felt any romantic spark. It felt awkward, if I'm being honest, and that's the last thing that you want for a romantic prospect for your main character. Next is Charlie, Belle's dad. And Charlie, like most of the novel, he's just there. He's just there and he's just Charlie. Like, okay, all right, you know, here I am. I'm the rock of the family. We're just gonna keep going. And that's all Charlie was. It was never like, oh, you know, I have this interesting backstory, or I'm really close to my daughter because it felt like Belle was close to him, but he was never close to anyone. That's what it kind of felt like in this novel. And it was just like, Charlie's just there. Then, of course, you have Rachel, and Rachel is Belle's mom, who has reappeared after 16 years. Boy, did I feel bad for her. Belle was such a little shit. Like, oh my gosh. I get that it's tough. I mean, I don't get it because I've never been through this, but I understand that it could be tough for Belle having her mom back after all of this time. But man, Belle was just so mean. She was so mean to Rachel, and Rachel's just like, smiling, nodding, trying to be the nicest mom that she could possibly be since she just missed 16 years of her daughter's life. And Belle was just like, no, she's lying. She's lying. She's lying. She's lying. She's lying. And she was mean to everyone. She was just so mean and so cynical and rude, and she was everything that I didn't like. And it really, really, really made this novel hard for me to read because the main character was so unlikable. You basically take Red from Five Survive. Okay, you take Red from Five Survive and you mix it a little bit with the obnoxious, absolutely infuriating character of Oliver from Five Survive. You mix those two together, Oliver and Red. Okay, you get the boring and you get the mean. There you have Belle. Because there was nothing in Belle that I was just like, I really like this about this character. No, she was, oh my gosh, she grated on my soul. And that's how I feel about Belle. Anyway, Rachel, I just felt horrible for her because she comes back basically from the dead and her daughter's just an ungrateful little turd. Anyway, I think the main thing with Belle that threw me off is that it always felt like she was just pointing her judgy little fingers at every single person, and she's like, you did this, and you did this, and you did this, and everyone hates me, and everyone's gonna leave. And I get that there's trauma there. I understand that there's trauma there that is unresolved, and she feels scared that everyone's gonna leave her. But this character, it was just so unlikable. She was such an unlikable character. And every single time Belle was like, oh, and she's lying and she's lying and she's lying. It never felt believable because it felt like some manic episode the whole entire novel. And I'm sitting here and I was seriously thinking to myself, I'm like, you know what? Maybe at the end they're just going to say that she has some kind of mental illness because that's what it felt like. That's how I felt about that. Anyway, to the plot. The plot of this novel. I guess just about every single twist that you had towards the end, I guessed who was keeping her, I guessed everything. And there were a couple things where I was like, oh, okay, cool. This was not expected, but most of it I was just like, yeah, I saw that coming. Yeah, I saw that coming. It was almost like I was reading the book just to get to the point. Like, okay, let me know that I'm right, and then we can move on with our lives. So the idea itself behind this book, the idea that's propelling the plot forward is really cool. It's really cool. It's the reappearance of Rachel Price. And I thought it would be a little more exhilarating than this, but the idea behind this plot is really great, but the way that it was executed was it was boring. It was so boring, and I know I keep saying that, but it's like you didn't get this sense of urgency. I never felt this sense of urgency, this sense of dread, this sense that something is about to happen, because nothing felt like it was about to happen until you get the last 100 pages of the novel, and you're like, okay, here's everything. Here's my book dump. Right here, 100 pages, you get everything. And the plot really, it bothered me. And I found all of the tiny little points that lead you to the ending of the book. I found all of those threads that Holly Jackson left for you to find to deduce who the killer was or who the kidnapper was or whatever. And I guessed it all. And so it wasn't surprising to me as a plot. And a lot of people might feel the exact opposite. They might feel that it was completely surprising. But for me personally, I was just bored. I was bored the whole entire book. And then, as for the writing is good as always. Holly Jackson is an amazing writer. But I love her writing style. I love the way that she describes stuff. I love the way that she builds up her characters, except when they're extremely unlikable, Red and Belle. But I don't know. I don't know. I like the writing style. I didn't like the plot, and I really didn't like the characters. So that's 1 out of 3. And that's kind of how this book feels, is really, really just subpar. Anyway, let's move on to the spoilers so I can unload all of these feelings onto you guys. Sorry. So yeah, We have Belle's grandfather, who's completely deranged for thinking that he's saving Rachel and keeping her alive by keeping her in basically a truck for 16 years, forcing her to give birth to Carter, aka Belle's cousin, not cousin, and then taking Carter away and giving it to number 2, Jeff, Belle's completely sociopathic uncle, who thinks that he can steal a baby and not have any consequences behind it, basically just because his father says, hey, you know, don't ask any questions, here's a baby. Yeah, no, that's no. And then there's Ash, and I feel completely bad for Ash because Belle just destroys all of his crap, all of his tech, and she destroys it all. And I know that he would have just deleted it. Like you said, he would have deleted everything had she just asked. She didn't need to go on this rampage of, oh, I'm going to destroy everything. I'm going to make sure that nobody hurts my mom now that I actually believe her and like her. Yeah, that's how I feel about that. And also, what's so bad with telling the police the truth? I felt the same way about this in a good, like, As Good as Dead, the 3rd book in A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I felt the same way. Like, why can't you just tell the police you didn't really do anything wrong? Okay? Most of this is self-defense. Most of this is self-defense. And if anything else was happening, it was under duress, and you can totally, like, wipe that off in a courtroom. Why can't you tell the police? Why do you have to go through this elaborate cover-up plan, even though it's pretty cool, you know, the writing and everything and learning about what they're doing to cover it up. But why do you have to go to this elaborate cover-up plan just because you feel like it's going to ruin your life if you tell the police? You're going to have to go through a trial, yeah, you know, whatever, but then you don't have to worry about living in lies and worrying about messing up what you say. Like, Carter can be your actual daughter. You don't have to worry about her calling you mom in public. What about this doesn't make sense, people? Like, Rachel's an adult. She should have just been like, yes, we're gonna tell the police. Charlie tried to kill me. He tried to cut my head off with an axe. I have Belle, who is a witness. I have Carter, who is a witness. And I have Carter, who pushed Charlie to keep him away from me because I was about to die. And Charlie pulled Jeff over the edge. Nothing that happened there was like anything that could put them in jail. No. Maybe chaining up Charlie in the truck was not such a good idea. But honestly, like, how is she ever going to even prove that he was in the truck? You can basically just say, hey, this is where they kept me. Wipe off the cuff for evidence, and that's good. You know, make sure that there's no evidence of Charlie in there. Charlie tried to kill me. Jeff knew about it. Jeff took my baby Carter. The grandfather, Patrick, he kept me in the truck. Okay, literally tell the police all of this. It's fine. It can't be that bad. Like, she made it seem like, oh my gosh, we're all going to go to jail, all 3 of us, and then we'll never get to see each other again. And it's just like, no, I don't feel like that. I personally did not feel like that. Like, I just felt like if they would have told the police, it wouldn't have been this huge freaking deal. Last thing that I have to rant about, because this really just made me sit there like, this makes no sense, was Ramsey. Okay, Ramsey at the end, our filmmaker, you know, our documentary maker. He's literally sitting here. He gives Belle this flash drive. He goes, here are the last copies of all the videos that you took. I watched them all. I've seen it. And I had them backed up in the cloud, but I deleted them all. But here's the last copy. You can do with it what you wish. Did nobody else sit there and think, so Ramsey saw the footage. Ramsey saw Charlie tied up, chained up in that truck. It just didn't say anything. Doesn't know anything about the story. Doesn't know, oh, you know, Charlie was a sociopath. No. He's just sitting here thinking, all right, we have some innocent man chained up in a truck. And I just saw the footage for this. But here you go, kiddo. All's well. Hope you have a wonderful life. You're just gonna be like, oh, you know, this man is chained in here. Could be dying. Could be starving. Who knows? But here's the last footage of said man. And I couldn't care less. That literally, I just sat there and I was like, this makes no sense. Because me as a person, if I saw that footage, I would be like, frick, what is going on here? Like, let me go straight to the police. Nope, Ramsey was like, here's the last footage. I deleted everything else. Hope that man's not dead. Be on your merry way, kiddo. I have so many questions. All right. That's about it, I think. I think that's about it. That's all I can do. That's all I can take anymore. Okay, overall, the reappearance of Rachel Price, I didn't like it. I hate to say that, but I didn't like it. I love Holly Jackson's writing style. I really do. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the plot. Everything was just too slow for me, and I really didn't like this novel. However, here's how my rating goes, because I did rate it 3 out of 5 stars. And you're going to be like, oh, you know, that's not a terrible rating. You said you didn't like this novel, but it's not a terrible rating. Here's my reasoning behind this. You get 1 star for plot, 1 star for characters. 2 2 stars total. And I was teetering in between 2 and 2.5 until you get to the end, because the end was really good. It really was. It was really good, but I cannot justify like reading the whole entire novel just for really good ending, especially when the rest of the novel was just boring. So I gave it 1 extra star for ending. So 3 total. 3 stars total. And even if it would have been 2.5, I would have rounded it up to 3 anyway, because none of the social media platforms allow half stars, unfortunately. But yeah, so I was severely disappointed. It was better than 5 Survive. I detest 5 Survive. It wasn't good. And I really wanted it to be good because I want another A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. But it wasn't it. This wasn't it. And I'll read the next one with hope that Holly Jackson can bring about the same amazingness that was Pip and Robbie and the whole story. But this one, it just wasn't it. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So if you like this video, please subscribe because I do book reviews all the time. If you have any recommendations for books for me to review, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Or if you want to tell me your feelings about this book, go ahead and leave it in the comments below because I would love to talk. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.